Hi, this is Rosalyn Kahn. I'm really excited and ecstatic to be here with retired Congresswoman Diane Watson. Diane, how you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing. I mean, I'm reacting to our environment in this country, so I'm doing as well as can be expected, like every other American.
No, it's really, you know, a sad day, and I just have to say, as an educator, and you as an educator yourself, I told the students in my classroom with almost a nearly broken down voice, I want you guys to take a moment out of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you may not know this, but I was around when Columbine happened. And I asked my students this. I said, I want you to tell me an example of a person that's different from yourself that you've gone ahead and made a friend to.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went around and they did this, and I said, you know what? This could happen at this very school, right here at Cesar Chavez, at Cal Artes, but it's up to you to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want you to do is I want you to find an outsider, someone who sits by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to make them your friend,
Mm-hmm.
because you could be part of the solution that goes ahead and stops that next accident from going ahead and happening.
See, we never have really had the discussion of why so many people can be killed at one time.
Right.
And we have to have a national discussion that has nothing to do with parties, with politics, but has to do with human life and civil liberties in our country. You know, our nation, under this president,
Mm-hmm.
has cast a very negative shadow to the rest of the world.
Right.
And I was in Nairobi,
Mm.
Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying when I got off the plane, what is going on in America? We've never seen it like this. And I said, neither have I, and you tell me and I'll translate it back.
Right. And no,
But
it's just
we're
it's,
living in a very strange time, and I have been in the field of politics for maybe 35 or 40 years.
right.
And I've never seen the political divide as bad as it is now.
No,
So
it's
that's saying something about our country.
no, it certainly does, and you know I want to shed a positive light because in the time that you were in office, you accomplished some really amazing feats and amazing things. I want to begin by going ahead and asking you this question: in your years in office, what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment? Your greatest accomplishment?
Well, my first bill that I introduced it in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
and it was SB 176,
Mm-hmm.
and it required that every single student
Mm-hmm.
in the youth authority, that's what we used to call
Right.
our institutions for young people, the youth authority, have an education led by a human being, not a workbook,
Right.
and not throwing papers at them and say, well, come back and pick them up in an hour,
Right.
but someone to sit with them and to teach them, to educate them, because I found out most of the students that were in trouble couldn't read,
Right.
but they keep being passed on.
Right.
And when I got on the board, along with Jerry Brown's sister,
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen Brown Rice,
Mm-hmm.
we put a stop to that.
Wow.
And that was my first bill related to my experiences. I was a school psychologist.
Wow. Well, as they say, you know, once you're working out helping kids, there's no stopping to it. It's always that continual heart of just going ahead and giving to them.
Yeah, well, what I did, most of my early legislation had to do with mothers and their children,
Mm-hmm.
because in the community, it's mostly women
Right.
and who help to train, but it takes a man to be the model for the behavior that is acceptable
Mm-hmm.
in a civil society.
Right. I know when I talked to you last time, you mentioned something about being appointed as an ambassador. That was one of your highlights. Could you tell us
I
about that?
started as a teacher, and one of the former city councilmen and a community woman came to my office at UCLA, where I was directing the Allied Health Professional Program, and was really enjoying teaching C students
Right.
in high school the kind of assistance in a healthcare facility. And I was really enjoying it because the students who were C students and Constance was saying, you'll never go to college and all,
Right.
loved working part-time in these facilities. And so I was doing that when they came to me and asked me to run. Well, I don't want to run, but we want you to run. But I don't want to run. I'm an educator and I would like to continue doing what I'm doing. Well, we would like you to run for office. Well, they finally broke me down. I ran for the board. And then I ran again for the Senate and didn't go to the Assembly, but went directly to the Senate where I stayed for 20 years. And I chaired a committee. It gave me the opportunity to introduce legislation that would help mothers who are on welfare transition to paid positions.
Wow.
And we taught them to be healthcare assistants. And there's
Wow.
always a need in every medical facility for an assistant. And we allowed them to be paid their welfare check for the first 6 weeks. And then we would wean them off. And they had skills that would take them for the rest of their lives. So we did a lot in the area of helping underclass families move towards up to the middle class and so on. And a lot of my legislation is about that. I introduced about 6,000 bills while I was there, and only about 1,800 of them got signed into law. But it was all right. At least we could debate in committee and on the floor. And that's what we lack in this environment is conversations. You can agree or disagree, but at least you're talking to each other.
Right.
And then from there, I was appointed by President Bill Clinton as a U.S. ambassador, where I served 2 years. And then from there, I was talked in again to running for Congress, and I stayed there until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
I retired.
That's amazing. And when you were there, what was some of the legislator that you put into office that you were really pleased, besides the ones that you just talked about? Was there some other legislation that...
Well, I was really pleased with getting them to expand Medicare. Medicaid is for young people and so on. Well, Medicare and then Medicaid, because we had Medi-Cal in the state of California. So I was really proud of doing more to address young people up to the age of 16 and senior citizens.
Right. And then, of all your time in office, what was the things that you want to be most remembered by?
To introduce legislation that would do no harm, but would do the best good as we could for all people.
Right.
And when I say all people, I mean all people. I don't care whether you're here legally or just legally. We have an obligation as the United States of America to provide for all of our citizens and people who live in this country a chance for freedom, liberty, opportunity, and so on. And a lot of my legislation dealt with that. But one piece that I'm really proud of, when I was in Congress, I started what we call a birthing center. And I put the current senator who's in my district, Holly Mitchell, in charge. And what we were trying to do is have a place that pregnant women could come.
Oh, wow.
And where they could be treated in the best way, be healthy, and deliver healthy children.
Wow.
And we were doing that with those that had been on welfare, those women who had no spouses, and those women who had very little support in their homes, didn't know how to eat correctly, never had healthy meals, and so on. And that's what we did in the birthing center, so that women who delivered children would deliver the healthiest child they could.
Wow. You know, what's really interesting is you talk about your caring in education, not wanting to get out of education, and it seemed like a through line of all the legislation was going back and helping those same people that you were in the classroom and life
Yeah,
and
they
so
might
forth.
not have been the same,
But the same
those, yeah, the same kind. And to me, we really, in this state of California, and we would be, the sixth largest by our incomes,
hmm
sixth largest,
right.
country in its revenues in the world. And I think since we're on the edge, we're as far west as you can go,
Yep.
and then you hit Hawaii,
Right.
that we can be an example for the rest of the country and the world. Because
Right.
anything that we did that was major in terms of programs,
hmm
at least 24 of the states picked up on it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
It's always great to be definitely a
hmm
trendsetter.
hmm
Um, Another question here. What was the incident that left the biggest impression on you of your service as a congresswoman?
an incident, well, I would say it wasn't an incident, but it was the fact that the community came to me
hmm
always and asked, would I carry this legislation?
hmm
Or what do you think about doing this in the community and the neighborhoods that we
hmm
live in?
hmm
And I was pleased. Right today, I'm recognized every place I go when I want to go in,
Right.
and
Be incognito.
incognito and get through what I'm doing. And I got stopped by a gentleman in the market, and he had his two girls with him, and they go to school right around here. And one was about 8, and the other looked like she's about 12.
Oh wow.
And he turned on and said, look at someone that you need to model your behavior after. And that I appreciated because, and I did a lot for young girls
hmm
and women
hmm
because, we were not at any parity and we were left behind
Right.
in so many instances, and it's really coming forth with me too.
Right.
And so I want to be the role model, and I hope my actions on at various levels of government would be uh, a way for young people to go ahead. And I believe that every single young person needs to go to college after,
hmm
because the world has changed so.
Right.
And you have to be current to live in civil society, and you have to understand your responsibility
hmm
as well as the responsibility of others.
Right.
And so one of the things I always talk to even my own family about, I said, you are responsible for your care.
hmm
You are responsible for your attitudes. You're
hmm
responsible for your behavior.
Right.
Now, why are you acting out? You tell me
Right.
why you're not responsible to take care of yourself
hmm
and to see that you are not putting something on other people that really belongs to you.
Right. You got to take the responsibility yourself, and I like the fact that
Yeah.
you talk about being a role model because, as you said throughout history, I know you were one of the first African American to be in office, and you look at all the frailties of the numbers that are in population and the numbers that are in the healthcare system and left behind, and yet you are showing certain ways that we could get ahead. If there's one change that you can make in our world today, and you can wave that magical wand, what would be the greatest thing that you would hope for?
That we can accept human beings,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't practice our behavior. We need to be a community
Mm-hmm.
that then responds and talks about solutions.
Right.
We all know the problems, but what progressive, positive solutions
Mm-hmm.
can you come up with? And it should not be divided between parties.
Right.
No.
Right.
If you are a representative, you represent all Americans,
Mm-hmm.
not just one half of the picture, but all.
Right.
And I hope that we can get to that attitude. And a lot of it starts with the chief executive at the top,
Right. Right.
you
Right.
know. And there's going to be a special coming up about the Kennedy family.
Oh wow.
And I love that because these were people who, on their own, had note and prominence and money and so on. But they shared with this nation and with others.
Mm.
And you can say the name of Kennedy, and people look at you different.
Right.
Yeah. And they really admired them because they came from wealth, but they helped those at the bottom, the lower classes. And I just appreciate President Kennedy, Jack Kennedy, and then Bobby,
Hmm.
and so on, because I think they set the pace
Wow.
for what America is all about,
It's
giving
always
back.
right. It's really what this country is really all about. It's
Mm-hmm.
helping those who truly don't have. There was a TED talk that I bring up to my students all the time. It's by Rabbi Lord David Sachs, and he talks about facing the fear, and it's coming to love the enemy and seeing the enemy in yourself and being able to
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
truly move on. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that show by Kennedy. I really am. It sounds really
Yes,
exciting.
I was a school psychologist
Mm-hmm.
at the elementary level, and I taught it in Hollywood, and I saw so many troubled
Mm-hmm.
young people who didn't lack the intelligence,
Right.
but their behavior was different, and they had difficulties dealing with problems. So I decided to go out to some of the homes,
Mm-hmm.
and I found out what the problem really was,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that people in this country believe in the fantasy that is Hollywood.
Mm.
And as I speak abroad, I would say I'm from Los Angeles, California. They nod to me, and I represent Hollywood. You should see the looks, because the only way they know about America is what we produce in film.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. And they then see a vision that, the musicals and so on is very positive,
Right.
but the real life is very seldom
Yeah.
seen. And it's just like what happened yesterday
Mm-hmm.
with the shooting in Florida at the
Mm-hmm.
school.
Mm-hmm.
And see, these are the result. That behavior is the result of something missing in our relationship to our children.
Right, right,
And
right.
the most missing aspect is the psychology, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And we talk very little about mental health, but that's what we're lacking in this country.
Right, 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 right,
Mental
right.
health facilities, and there needs to be one in every community. And I proposed that when I was in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Governor Duke Majan who said it would be too costly, and that's the last attempt. Ronald Reagan, as you know, when he became president,
Mm-hmm.
and when he was before that,
Mm-hmm.
the governor, he closed down most of our large mental health institutions.
I remember that.
You remember that?
I remember that very well.
And sent them all back to their own communities. And all you have to do is go down Crenshaw Boulevard, and you'll see what I mean.
Oh, you see them everywhere. You see them in
Yeah.
Hollywood. You see them in
All
the Valley.
over,
Just
yeah.
everywhere. They're
Uh-huh.
out there.
And who are people who are living in the river basin that they're going to move out.
Right, right, right.
And most of them are in need of mental health treatment.
Right,
And
right,
how are
right.
they going to get it?
No, it's a
So it's a characteristic of the time that we're living in, that more things are more important in the development of our human beings. And to be good and relative and responsible human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's missing
Right,
in
right,
this
right.
culture.
No, it's really a sad thing. I know that there are all sorts of groups. I know that the veterans have a group where it's an ACT Day that in Orange County there's a Patriots in Pause, and they help veterans go out and get the beds and the things, and they do similar things through communities throughout Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And I know the days that they have free dental care and eye visits, the lines are packed until no tomorrow, and people are lining up the yin yang and so on and so
But
forth.
not enough.
But there's not enough.
See?
There's not
There's not enough.
and there's not enough, and it's so sparse. I mean, there's a lady that works through the Panorama Chamber. Her name is Yvonne Grand, and she has a heart for diabetes, and she goes out to the communities out in Panorama City in that area, and just trying to teach and inform and giving the people the treatment that they need. It doesn't matter what money they have or what money they don't have, just to elevate that cost. and one little person in one little place. But you hit on something earlier I want to come back and address. If there was a message that you could say to the children of today, of what you wish and hope for them, what would be the message you want to communicate to children out there in the world?
To let them understand that in a democratic environment, we respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
We treat each other with dignity. And rather than tearing them down even further, they're responsible for their own behavior. So I would like every child to educate him or herself to the extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean in a formal classroom, but learn something new every day. Respect a human being and don't hate. Try to help. And I hope that those kinds of traits are taught in schools today. I've been out of the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but I still have an opportunity to speak towards issues.
No, it's really important. One of the things I do as a teacher in the college classroom and in the high schools is I talk about some of those traits about spending 15 minutes every day going ahead and reading,
Yeah.
spending 15 minutes a day writing, and really trying to be thankful for the things that we have.
Well, in this country, constitutionally, you must be in school from 0 to 9 to 16.
Right.
And everyone, by law, has to do that, whether you're homeschool or
Mm-hmm.
whether you're in a charter school or
Mhm.
in a private school. Education is the thing, and we're global today.
Right.
When I was in elementary school, we were taught Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 on the Nina de Pinta de Santa Maria. Well, I went beyond that because Christopher Columbus did not discover America.
Right.
He was selling to India
Mm-hmm.
for spices and silks, and he ran into some islands, and he called them the West Indies. And then when he hit this big lump of land, there were people looking around the trees at him.
Mm-hmm.
And we then, because of the westward movement, became the United States. Where did the A come from,
Right.
Madam Teacher?
The Americas.
It wasn't America at that time.
You get me
It
on
was
this
just-
every time.
It was just a massive land.
Right. And then they went ahead and they overtook it, and they called the people and they gave them
But
proper.
where did we get America from? The name America. America's
was the guy who
Vespucci.
Right, the guy who financed the guy who financed it.
Well, America, no, he was coming from Greece, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
America's Vespucci was already in the New England area.
Right.
And so we now call ourselves the United States of America, after America's Vespucci.
Wow. Every day we're learning something new.
Well, that's the point I'm making.
There you go. We've got to learn this stuff because kids
So,
need to know what's right in history.
I was on the textbook committee, and we had to go to New York where our textbooks are written,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to change.
Wow.
And also, Africa and South Africa, it was apartheid,
Mm-hmm.
and then we overthrew those,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to change our textbooks and rewrite them because many of the colonies that were Dutch and British, colonized, and then we went back to the original names. So we had to change our textbooks.
Right.
So you see, we need to teach our children that's the past, this is the present, and there's a future.
Right.
And we need to be relevant, and we need to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all right to say, I made a mistake, I gave you the wrong information. You have a responsibility to correct and to fact check.
That's right.
Mhm.
Facts is where it's always at.
Mhm.
Now, I hear in your retirement that you were becoming an author. You had some books that were on the works.
I had some books in the works, and it's the time that it takes to, I'm going to speak my story. And I have an app on my computer
Right.
to do that, but it takes time to do it. And you can see how the doorbell rings, cell phone rings, and
Oh yes.
I'm the only one here on this side.
Wow.
And
wow.
there are a few things. So it does take time, and I'm looking towards getting an assistant and maybe a little office where I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But my last name is Watson,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up listening to radio because we didn't have. You had television.
Right.
We didn't have that. We had radio. And we used to listen to a detective by the name of Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And he was always speaking to
Mr. Watson.
Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson.
And he would say, Elementary Dr. Watson. That's the title of my book.
Oh, wow.
Because I was an elementary school teacher. I'm Dr. Watson. And I taught, as I said, in elementary school. So the title of my book is Elementary Dr. Watson.
Wow. Just going ahead and going back to your history and your life, and that's amazing. I can hardly wait till that comes out and the stories that are going to be inside of there because of your breadth of knowledge of education and.
Well, not only that, I've had worldwide experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you ride the point, you're the first to get shot at. Well, I had all kinds of experiences breaking the gender line and the color line.
Oh, wow.
And, telling me you don't belong here, but I'm here. And, all kinds of insulting and including sexual.
Right,
and,
right.
I experienced all that. But I said it's too far back for me to repeat it now. I just didn't fall for any of them, kept on track.
Right.
And became a school psychologist so I could help young people stabilize their own lives and dream and approach their dreams the best they can.
No, well, that's like a beautiful, beautiful story. I know you've got a lot going on here, but I appreciate you taking out the time and making it available so we can share your history with the world because there's so much that you've shared with us, and I'm so truly grateful. And thank you so very much.
Well,
God bless
thank you. Thank you.